This is a potato peeler, and what you do is you just apply a small amount of pressure in a downward motion to do the potatoes. You can also use this to shave carrots or other hard root type items like that. As you can see over here to the side, I have already diced into 1-inch cube 2 Russell potatoes. This is my third one, and it's in total, all 3 of them are 1.5 pounds combined. So to cut the potato, you just cut it in half, and then from there we're going to cut it in half again, and once on either side of that middle cut. I like to take the 2 and lay them on their side, the cut side, and cut down the middle, and then turn them, and then cut again to get nice little cubes. And then once more with the other half. So down the middle, on either side of that initial cut, in the middle again, and just slice and slice. And if you end up getting a piece that's too big, don't worry, just cut it in half. Just try to make them all about as even as possible. Once you have all of your potatoes peeled and diced and chopped, take them over to the sink, and you're going to fill them full of water. You want the potatoes kind of in an even level because we are going to add water, enough water to cover the potatoes about 1 inch to 2 inches. And then from here, we're just going to bring them over to the stove. And go ahead and turn it on to about high to medium-high heat. Medium-high heat works pretty decently. Now we need to season our water. We're going to use 1 tablespoon of salt. And make sure whatever pan that you are using, you have a lid for this. It's not necessary, but it does help just to keep the potatoes still warm while you're making the actual filling of the shepherd's pie. So we're going to bring these potatoes to a boil. And once they're boiling, it's going to take about 10 to 12 minutes. You want them tender enough that where they just fall off of the fork. Bring them over and drain. Make sure to keep that same pot in within arm's reach because you're going to be putting the same potatoes back in there. Alright, now we're going to bring it back over to the stove and put our butter and milk into this. I used 3.5 tablespoons of unsalted butter and 1/3 cup of Fairlife skim, like the fat-free milk. 1/3 cup plus 1/2 of a third. I'm not good with math, so I don't know what that is. Sorry. I do know that it looks like a lot of liquid, but it's actually going to combine quite nicely and make a really, really nice mashed potato texture. And you're just going to kind of keep mashing and incorporating all the butter and the milk together. Excuse me. See how nicely all the potatoes and everything, once you really, really work it in there and incorporate the butter and the milk, how nicely it does turn out. I typically use heavy whipping cream for this recipe instead of the skim milk, but I was asked to make it on a little bit of a lighter note, so that's why I use that. I was asked to use milk for that night's dinner. So that is what we have on hand and drink here at the house, so that's what I used, but typically it is heavy whipping cream. You could also use half and half if you wanted. Alright, now that everything is mashed and it's looking good, we're going to go ahead and put the lid on it and start working on the filling for the shepherd's pie. Okay, this is a 12-inch non-stick oven safe pan. I have 3.5 tablespoons of unsalted butter in here as well. This is 2 carrots and 1/4 of a sweet onion, and it is over a medium-low heat. Typically when I cook something, I typically go on the lower heat side versus higher heat. It just allows me to be able to kind of judge it a little bit better. And plus, when you cook something slower, it really has time for everything to kind of bloom and just really come together and incorporate nicely if you have the time. So, and not only that, we're only wanting these vegetables to soften. We're not trying to brown them or blacken them or anything along those lines. This typically takes about 4 minutes, 4 to 5 minutes, medium, low heat. And you do want to stir them occasionally. I like to go a little more on the occasionally than others, but in between stirring your vegetables, you will need to preheat your oven. And you can always do this prior as well. The oven needs to be turned on to a high temperature broil. So, and align your top shelf roughly about 5 to 6 inches underneath the broiler mechanism up there at the top. And that's where your pan's gonna go. Give them a quick stir. Because like I said, you just want to get them soft. So we're not trying to brown them or anything along those lines. And once you start this filling, it does move a little bit quickly, well, kind of quickly. So it does help to have your actual ingredients prepped prior to starting. I think prior to even starting the mashed potatoes, because you don't want those to even get cold. Because you're sitting there chopping and mincing and everything else. All these carrots and onions. And I do have a habit of knocking vegetables out of the pan whenever I'm cooking. That is just a normal thing. As you can see, I do promise that I am going to pick them up and clean. See? I don't know what it is, but it happens every time. Alright, now that those are looking nice and soft, it's been about 4 minutes. Now we're going to go ahead and add our ground sirloin. I have 1.25 pounds of ground sirloin here. We're also going to add some salt and pepper to this as well. That's 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. Go ahead and chop all that up. And we're going to completely brown this and incorporate, all of your carrots and onions into the onion mixture or meat. So just fold it in all the way around the pan. This typically takes about 5 minutes or so to completely brown all of the meat. I don't know if y'all can hear my chair, but it is so squeaky, and I apologize if you can. I know. All right, so we're getting all this meat browned. Now we're going to add our tomato paste. And we are doing 1.5 tablespoons of tomato paste. I really love this stuff in the tube. It's so good. It's super convenient. If you haven't tried it, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. Then we are also going to add 1 minced or grated clove of garlic and 1 tablespoon of fresh minced thyme. Make sure you stir that in really, really well, about a minute or so, because it's going to be cooking, as you're stirring it in. Just try to get everything well incorporated. And for the garlic, I actually like to use a grater, like a really, really fine grater, and I will just grate my garlic instead of having to sit there and chop it and mince it. And this is 1.5 tablespoons of flour, just all-purpose flour. And what this is going to do is this is actually going to adhere to your beef and your onion and your carrots because of all of that fat. And then once we add our broth, it's going to make this delicious kind of like paste almost if you let it cook that long, but we're not going to. It just creates like a really, really nice base and a sauce. And now we're going to actually stir in our beef broth. We're using 3/4 cup of beef broth. And I like to turn my pans and my bowls or anything like that, and your soy sauce as well. 3 teaspoons. But like I was saying, I like to turn it kind of completely around so that way you don't have that drippage on the side of your bowl or your mixing cup. Now we're going to stir all this together, and you'll see that it's going to thicken really, really nicely, and that's because of that flour. And this takes anywhere from maybe 2 minutes, 3. It does not take long. Maybe a minute, just depending on how hot your pan is. And from here, we're going to take it off the heat now that we've incorporated everything. And those mashed potatoes that we just made, we are going to, nope, I apologize. We are going to put in our frozen peas right now because we need to incorporate those. You can't forget the peas. And it is 1.5 cups of frozen peas. Go ahead and incorporate all of those. Fold them in, kind of get them evenly distributed. Once they're all mixed in, go ahead and spread them out. Spread out your mixture kind of evenly, because this is, now we are going to put the potatoes on top of the actual pie filling. So go ahead and you can take the same spatula you were using and just scoop it up and plop it on. You can do smaller plops of potatoes, or like smaller, like little mounds, because I do end up getting a heavy thickness in that area right there. So it does take me a little bit of time to kind of make it all even. But push it out all the way to the edge of your pan, trying to cover everything up. Yeah, you can see I had way too much in that area. So okay, now what you're going to do is you are going to take a fork and mess up that pretty smooth potatoes you just did. And you're going to go ahead and scrape along the top. And this is going to create these really, really nice, pretty ridges. Once you put it into the broiler, those are going to brown and crisp so nicely. So it is well worth it. I know, but it does break your heart after you just spend all that time making it smooth and flat and pretty. And just have fun with this part. I just was going crazy with it. Now that that is done and you've scored it, we're going to take it over to the broiler. And we're going to place it on the top shelf right underneath that broiling unit. And make sure it is on high. And then we're going to put it in there for 6 minutes. Now that the 6 minutes is up, this is what it looks like. And now we have to let it sit for 10 minutes to let it cool down. Okay. Now that once it's cooled, it's been the 10 minutes, you can go ahead and get a nice big spoon. And I will go ahead and let you know that it is still piping hot. You can see all the steam coming out of there. So keep an oven mitt handy, because that handle is still going to be hot even after sitting out for 10 minutes. And this recipe is good for 3 to 4 people. So and there you go, shepherd's pie.